Hello, you wonderful people. Welcome to another episode of Move List. This being a show where I talk about my favorite moves, techniques, and abilities from TV shows, video games, anime, manga, etc. So for today's episode, I want to talk about the ability known as the Word of God. Obviously, if you are unaware, the ability known as the Word of God belongs to Jesse, the main protagonist of the series Preacher. Obviously, I'll dive into that a lot more. Do note ahead of time before I really get into this, I will be going into spoilers about stuff particularly from the TV show when it comes to this whole ability. So I recommend if you're not completely caught up with the TV show Preacher, you do not watch this because we will be going into spoilers. As I kind of went into earlier, the Word of God belongs to a being known as Genesis, which is a half angel, half demon thing that currently resides in Jesse, in turn giving him the ability known as the Word of God. Well, what is the Word of God exactly? The Word of God is the ability to make anyone do anything that you say, whether it be literally or figuratively. It is a crazy powerful ability. Do note that I did just say figuratively because there have been instances where Jesse has used the power and has made someone act out something that he said figuratively. So for example, there's a dude back in season 1 where I can't remember what Jesse's exact words were, but basically it was like show his heart to his mom or something, or open up his heart to his mom or something like that. The guy literally drove all the way to where his mom was, cut open his chest and pulled his heart out and presented it to him. And then there's the example of him sending Eugene to hell. Something he said out of anger that literally happened. Once again, just showing you the magnitude of this ability, making anyone do anything. What also makes this ability crazy is the fact is that it can work on anyone. The ability has shown itself to be able to work on angels, vampires. There's even moments in season 3 where God has admitted that he's scared of Jesse finding him because he doesn't want Genesis to impede with his plans, which means Genesis could even affect God. I mean, it's crazy because this ability is kind of pretty much almost unstoppable. The moment it's activated against someone, they cannot help but do it. Like once the command has been dealt out, they can't do anything about it. They can try and fight it, but their body won't let them. Like it's just a supernatural force. It's forcing them to do whatever action it is that Jesse tells them. But if you notice, I did say that it is almost unbeatable. The show has presented two main weaknesses that Genesis has, which is crazy to think about. An ability as amazing and as powerful as it is actually has weaknesses. One main weakness, and I think it's kind of like the most common and easy weakness to it, is the fact is that you need to hear the words command. For instance, if you're blasting music loud enough, which is an instance that has actually popped up in the show, in particular season 2, or if you are deaf, which is what Donnie used to kind of handle the whole situation in season 1, by getting rid of his own hearing, Genesis couldn't work on him anymore because you literally have to hear the command. Which, once again, it's crazy. As powerful as this is, something as simple as not being able to hear it can stop this ability from working on you. And the other main weakness that we found out about this ability is that it only works on people with a soul. As we learned in season 2 with the Cowboys, aka the Saint of Killers, for whatever reason, that's just how Genesis works. I guess, you know, the understanding behind it is that basically when the command is being dished out to you, it's reaching into your soul. But I guess for it to reach into your soul, it has to reach your ears first. I don't know, it's kind of a complex thing that hasn't really been broken down. I mean, it's kind of a supernatural ability. You don't have to get all technical with it, I guess. But as the show has also shown us, it doesn't take that much of a soul for the word to work on. As we saw, Jesse gave 1% of his soul to the Saint of Killers, and it was enough for Jesse to be able to use the word against. But as you can kind of tell, this second weakness is a very rare condition, so it's not something everybody can take advantage of. And besides all those weaknesses, I also wanted to take this video to also talk about a little bit about Genesis, because it isn't, once again, not just Jesse's ability. It actually originally belongs to Genesis. And it's actually kind of an interesting thing because Genesis himself is actually very particular in what person he possesses. Because as we can see, when it goes into a host that isn't suitable, it literally explodes. Lots of blood and guts everywhere. But Jesse happens to be one of the few people that it's acceptable in. Interestingly enough, and once again, this is where we get into spoiler territories, in particular about this most recent season of Preacher, we ended up learning the reason why. It's because Genesis nature is that of good and evil because it is half angel and it is half demon. And it kind of looks for a similar host, in particular Jesse's case. The fact of the matter is, it hasn't really been specified what the exact percentages is, but basically the ratio of good and evil in your soul kind of has to match Genesis. It has to be kind of a reflection of its nature. So Jesse fits that. He has quite a bit of good in his soul, but he also has a certain threshold of evil in his soul, which interestingly enough, I guess that technically counts as a third weakness, because we saw this instance when Jesse gave that 1% of his soul to the cowboy, the word of God stopped working, because for Genesis to operate at 100% in your body, within you, like, that ratio has to be kept, and Jesse getting rid of that 1% of his soul threw the balance off in his body, the balance that Genesis resided in him for. It wasn't enough for Genesis to completely reject him, but it was enough to throw off the balance so that the ability, the word of God, couldn't be used. Much like the second weakness, this is a very, very rare situation. It's not something that would come up very often, so it takes these very particular circumstances for this third weakness to happen. Do note that the word of God ability belongs to Genesis, not Jesse. The only reason why Jesse has access to this ability is because Genesis is inside of him. The moment Genesis leaves, the ability goes with it. But even with that all really said and done, it doesn't change the fact is that this ability is scary. The fact of the matter is, it is invisible. Other than the one main weakness, there's no other way to really stop this, because it's just this supernatural force forcing you to do something. Do note that all this information I'm relaying all comes from Preacher the TV show, as I have no experience with the comic book / graphic novel that this series is actually originally based on. So there's probably a lot more to this whole word of God / Genesis situation that might get elaborated on even more in the comic books that the TV show just hasn't gotten to yet. Maybe I'll do a video in the future kind of doing kind of like a 0.5 or whatever, updating any potential information I later on learn about Genesis. But really, that's all I want to talk about in this video. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest and enjoy it. Good day and good